For as long as I can remember, I have loved animals and I have loved artwork. And being able to combine both of these things into a career of being a wildlife painter has been a dream come true. Hey everyone, my name is Cassydraws and I'm a professional wildlife and pet portrait artist from Canada. Not only do I love creating because, well, I get to be creative, but I also love to inspire and be inspired by my fellow artists. And aside from that as well, the other thing that keeps me motivated is the fact that I can use my art for change. Using my artwork and my paintings to drive conversations about our endangered and potentially extinct animals has been a side of the art industry and my career that I never expected. So being able to help and join efforts in conservation has really just been the most rewarding experience.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Etcher Studio. My name is Marian. I will be your host here for today, and I am joined by your teacher for this class, Cassydraws. I hope every one of you is having a great time. Please let us know in the chat how excited you are to be here today and to learn from Cassy. Oh yes, hello, Kathleen. Good to see you. The chat has been active while we've been waiting, so this is super exciting. So just a couple of things here before we get started. I have a PDF here for you, which is the materials list and has the link to the reference photos for your class today if you haven't already taken a look at it. So please pull up this Dropbox link. It's the PDF for today's class. You can download it and access the reference photos as well as the materials list. As well as the survey link at the end of the class, okay? And then the link to Cassy's recording, which will be made available after a few days, is also here. I'm going to go ahead and put that in right now. Hello. I love reading the comments here, the chat. Sometimes there's a lag, so bear with us there. So the link that I just put in there is the access to Cassy's recording after this class is over. Even though we're doing it free, streaming it live here today on our YouTube channel, we will be taking it down. So if you'd like to purchase this recording to follow along later, please check out that link. Your support is very appreciated, and Cassy, of course, gets supported when you purchase the recording, and so it's all just feel good all around. Okay, all right. Now, if you have any questions for Cassy throughout her teaching today, please feel free to put it in the chat. I will ask them to her if it is immediately relevant to what she's teaching at that moment. If not, we will save it for the Q&A at the very end. And if you stick around to the very end, we are doing a giveaway for one Etcher product. Super exciting. So stick around, have some fun, get your art supplies, and get ready to paint along with us. And we're going to have a really great time. Okay. All right. So I think that's enough talking for me today. Cassy, I'm going to bring it on over to you. Let us know what we're doing today.
Awesome. Yeah, so first, hello, everyone. For those of you who I've not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Cassydraws, and today we're going to be working through a snow leopard painting in acrylic. So I know acrylic is a new medium to Etcher, and so I'm super excited to share all of my tips and tricks throughout my painting journey and sort of help you alongside your journey as well. So I'm super excited, and again, thank you for allowing me into your homes, into your studios, and I see a lot of new faces and faces that I recognize from the Cassydraws family. So hello. And yeah, just so excited. And please, I'm an open book. So throughout this class at any time, any question, whether you think it's a silly beginner question or you're not sure if it's even relevant, ask it anyway. And I will be so happy to help you. So I'm ready. And thank you for Marian being an amazing host already and helping me through this. It's my first time here, so go easy on me, but I'm super excited.
Awesome. You're going to do just fine. I'm going to go ahead and start the video now. And everybody, let's go ahead and get ready to go.
Let's get started.
Here we are.
Perfect. So here's the example of the painting. This painting I've titled La Ramar, and it's after the beautiful gemstone eyes, those gorgeous baby blue teal eyes. So that's kind of where the name came from, and we're going to be working through this painting today. Now, keep in mind this painting, and I'm going to kind of remind you throughout this class that this painting was painted between roughly 25 to 30 hours of work. So today we have 90 minutes. So don't feel stressed if you're like halfway through this and you're like, I'm not even close to being done. It's totally expected. There's a lot of work with acrylic and layering, and we're going to go through all that good stuff. But just keep that in mind. This is not a stressful class. I want you guys to have fun with me and get as much done as you can. And of course, ask away any questions. So there's Larimar, what we're going to be working with. And then we'll go through some of the supplies as well. Perfect. So here's a little snapshot of some of the stuff that I'm using in this video. So we've got my collection of brushes up towards the top, and then some tubes of paint. Don't judge me, they're very well used. So some of them look a little rough, but here's kind of a sample of the paints. You can use whatever materials you want: gouache, watercolor, acrylic. A lot of these steps will apply to that as well. So don't fret if you're like, I have nothing in acrylic, but want to try anyway. You're more than welcome to do so, but that's what I'm using in today's class. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's jump right in. All right, so you have your reference in the bottom left-hand side. That's what I'm going to be referencing throughout this class. And to get started with all of my pet portraits and animal artwork is I always like to start with an outline. Now, the reason why I'm starting with an outline is because with acrylic, we're going to be using a lot of layers, and we're basically going to dump a lot of paint onto this canvas. And the things that I want to stay are the outlines and the anatomy of this portrait. So if I were going to jump right in with my acrylic paint, I might lose track of where are the eyes located? Where is the nose located? And then the snow leopard might look like it's got a little bit of a smushed face towards the end. So I want to make sure that I keep these outlines and the anatomy correct throughout. Now, how I go about doing this outline is I'm taking a small round brush. You can use whatever brush you prefer, whatever your comfort zone is, but something a little bit on the smaller side. This is very detailed. And I'm taking a color combination of Mars Black, Burnt Umber, and white together. So I'm not going in right with Mars Black right off the hop. That's the darkest paint available. I want this to be just a touch lighter so that I can add in some shadows later on over top. So I'm just going in with this color mixture, very, very fine lines. And you can see here that I'm just following the sketch that I sketched down onto my canvas. Now, I am seeing a little bit in chat about sketchbooks. There are a lot of different materials you can paint on with acrylic. So if you have a mixed media book available, if you have some canvas, a lot of artists with acrylic will choose to use panels as well. You can use panels, pretty much anything. You will just get some, different effects and sort of texture to your work if you're using a canvas or primed with gesso, etc. So there's a lot going on. Use whatever you are comfortable with and just work on getting this outline completed. Now you can see that I've done the eyes now. I've gotten those eyes outlined. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing with the nose. So I call them the nose holes. I don't think that's scientific at all, but I like to paint in the nose holes with that color mixture. I like to do the little split in the center, just giving myself a really good roadmap to work from. Next, we'll kind of creep down towards the frown. I always like to say big cats have a frown always. So I'm just going in with my small brush and just getting that outline in. The jowls and sort of loose skin on the sides, I always find is a really good waypoint. Now this becomes the fun part, is getting in all of these beautiful spots. So any animal that has a print, I find is always a little bit more difficult to paint than those that just have a base color for their fur. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking my blender brush, which is a already very round brush, so I don't have to work too hard to get the shapes of the spots. And I'm simply just pushing this brush down onto the canvas to create these really kind of cool, organic, oval circle type egg shapes. And you can see here that the brush is doing a lot of the work for me. So a great brush for this would be the blender. even a round, a filbert, anything that you have available, even honestly, the end of a pencil. I know that's kind of a weird thing, but it gives you a really cool circle shape, just kind of dragging the end of an eraser down onto your canvas. So there's lots of cool things that you can do to create these shapes, but I prefer the really nice round sort of bushy brushes for this area. A little zoom
Could
out.
you
Perfect. Go ahead.
Hi, Cassie. Sorry, yeah, I just had a question that I thought of.
Sure.
How thick is the paint? Like, I think there is a learning curve in terms of how much paint you're using for this first
Yes.
step.
Yes, very good question. I have loaded up this blender brush full of paint. So I am basically dunking this into a glob of paint on my paint palette and just using this brush until it dries out, essentially. So you'll see kind of in and towards this area, my brush looks very dry, sort of scratchy. And so I'm using this brush up until it dries out. Some of the areas that are a little bit lighter, that's a really good example there above that eyebrow. I'm using a very, very dry, rough sort of brush, very little water, lots of paint, and just kind of scratching it over this canvas. So that's a really excellent, excellent question. And ultimately, that comes from practice. So if you've never used acrylic before, and this is a medium that you're very new to, and let's say you've worked with watercolor or gouache, that will be a little bit of a learning curve, but definitely something with practice that it just starts to come a lot more natural. Perfect. Yeah, you can see I'm just being kind of rough. At this point, I can't stress it enough that you want to be really sort of loose, organic, very rough. I'm not focused on getting each individual spot in its exact location. I'm only worried about the general idea and giving myself a good guide to work from. Excited to see an acrylic lesson, says Bonita. Me too. I'm having so much fun. I hope you guys are as well. Perfect. So next step, once that has dried with the power of movie magic, our spots have dried, we're going to go ahead with a Filbert brush. And now what I'm going to do is a light wash over top of this entire canvas. Now, if you're used to watercolor and gouache, this is going to be right up your wheelhouse. Same exact sort of principles and feeling of it. So I'm really watering down my acrylic. I've probably got about 80% water, and the rest will be acrylic paint. And I'm going in and I'm looking at my reference and I'm only blocking in the areas of shadow that I can see. So I'm only worried about the darkest areas on the face. So for example, you can see a really nice area that I'm working in now on that cheekbone. So the cheekbone of this snow leopard is really quite dark in comparison to, let's say, the forehead or any other area. So I'm just kind of blocking those in, very light washes. So light passes. I don't want to go too dark at this point because I don't want to cover over my sketch until I know for sure where these areas are. Something I like to do as well, and please just tell me to stop talking if I'm going too quick, but I like to add in a little bit of color at this stage as well. So I've added in a little bit of burnt umber to get a nice natural warm gray. I don't want this painting to be black and white. I want it to have color, so I'm going to add in a little bit of a brown on those edges. Perfect. Awesome. So once your first layers have dried, and you can do as many as you like, it's totally up to you. I'm going to go ahead and get the background out of the way. So I want this background done and completed before I move forward into the snow leopard. So I've decided to work with a sort of color that would balance those eyes, a very sort of dark teal. And so I'm just going to go in with a solid color in the background and really just haphazardly put this background in first. And the reason why I'm doing this now is because I'm going to be layering a lot of fur over top of this background, and I want to save all the time and paint and energy that I can. So we're working from back to front with acrylics, from dark to light. If you ever are confused or you are kind of new to this medium, remember this: back to front, dark to light, and that is a surefire way to get an awesome, awesome painting. Now, I am going to nerd out at this part. I love painting eyes, and in my opinion, eyes are the most important part of any painting. They are the window to the soul and really what we as humans identify with. We gravitate toward those eyes. So I spend a lot of extra time painting this part in my painting. So to start off, we're going to do a preliminary layer in this eye of a middle tone color. So I've looked at my reference down in the bottom there, and I've chosen sort of like a 50% blue color. So I don't want to go too light, but I don't want to go too dark. I want to be right in the middle. A sort of, I call it my comfort color, that I can add a little bit of both on either side, my lights and my darks, to make this eye look realistic and really just pop off the page. And at this stage too, I think it's important to note that you can use whatever brush you prefer. So you'll see a lot of times throughout this painting, I'm using my small round brush and my Filbert. Those are my go-tos. However, some artists really prefer square brushes. There are a few that will use blenders or daggers. So whatever brush you have available, you can paint and paint your way. I say do whatever makes you happy. And you can see that I'm just kind of going through this, making sure it's an opaque layer. I want a really nice base, and just kind of blocking this all in, very haphazard and not really worrying about it being too perfect. I am ambidextrous. Yes, I'm seeing this in chat. I am. Yes, I use my left and my right hand. Depending on what the work is, if it's a lot of pushing around the canvas, I'll use my left as just kind of the grunt work, if you will, and fine details for the right hand. So the next step in our painting, we're going to go ahead and add in a shadow to this eye now as well. So I've added in to this blue mixture a little bit of Mars Black. You can see here that it originally comes off very gray. And this is just my preliminary shadow layer to give myself an idea of where these shadows actually are within this eye. Now, it's important to note as well that when you're painting eyes, or really anything in general, is you're going to want to prepare for at least 5, 6, 7 layers of acrylic. So we are going to go over this area multiple times with slight color changes, slight lighting changes, and really just adjust this to match our reference. So you can see here that I'm kind of expanding down around that pupil. I've added in a little bit of a titanium white, so I'm kind of making it a little bit more of a milky color. So I've got probably at this point 6, 7 different colors mixed on my palette, and I'm kind of just bouncing back and forth, keeping this really organic.
It's funny you mentioned that, because there's a question about how to keep your paints moist. I don't know if you're seeing that comment here in the chat, but
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. If you could
Acrylics,
expand on that. Yeah.
Sure. So acrylics dry very, very quickly, as you know, if you've worked with acrylics. And the best way that I like to keep them sort of wet and workable is I will actually cover them with a sort of Tupperware container. So if I know that I'm going to be working in a specific area for a long time, I will just kind of cover my paints with some Tupperware, and that will keep, if the fan or the window's open, that will kind of keep the air away from the paint. There are Stay Wet palettes as well that will usually come with a little sponge that you can actually put in as well, and that will keep the moisture within your paints. But honestly, the best thing that I learned was to work fast. So I will mix probably this same blue color that I'm using now 6 to 8 different times in different areas on my palette. I know it seems very sort of redundant, but it's just kind of how I've worked. I've learned how it kind of mixes, and I'll just use that same color and mix it multiple times. But yes, lots of ways to keep them sort of wet and workable, with some mediums as well, some gel mediums that you can add to your paint to kind of bulk it up a little bit. Great question. Excellent question.
Do you not use mediums, Cassie?
I don't. No, I used to when I first started painting, but now I've kind of just gotten to where I've used it enough. I can just kind of remix this color over and over and kind of do it that way. Frustrating, but effective. So what we're going to do now is, once that eye has kind of been completed, we've really been layering in those shadows. You can see that I did 3, 4, 5 different layers while I was chit-chatting here with a Mars Black over top. So I've kind of really darkened up that top area of the eye. I'm going in with what I call the catch light. And this is arguably the most important of any eye, whether it's a human portrait or an animal portrait. That catch light really brings life to your portrait. And so how I start doing this is I will take a sort of cool gray blue color, and that will be my preliminary layer to block it into the eyeball. So the positioning of it, if you will. And then from there, what I'll do is I will slowly in every single layer add in a little bit of titanium white. So I'm lightening this color up 10, 15, 20% each time, and really just working on lightening this up. And you can see that I'm adding in a little bit of an effect on top as well for the eyelashes, which I think brings a lot of lifeness to it, realistic feeling to it, that there's something actually being reflected back at us. Whoever took this photo is kind of reflecting those sort of eyelashes and maybe some imagery in this eyeball as well. And the last step will be to add in a little bit of a lighting effect. So I'm kind of going in and punching any areas up that I think got a little bit too dark in this eye. You can see in the bottom, the left reference has a very, very light ring at the very bottom. So I'm kind of punching that up a little bit and making that a little bit lighter.